Okay, my name is Kwezi Mlaba. This is my 309 Theatre Industry Interview, and my interviewee is Dr. Lwazi Manzi, who is a film producer and also a yes doctor. So Lwazi, let's just get straight into it. I know this is probably a popular question, but how did you launch from medicine to film? How did you launch from medicine to film?
I don't know, because I also just found myself in this space. So I don't know how you launch into it. But what I always say is that there is actually a lot of skills transfer from emergency medicine to film producing. Crisis management being one of them all the time. People management. Just high-paced environment, high pressure, all of those things, being able to manage that, it's a huge part of the job. So, there's a lot that, it makes me very chilled to actually be coming from emergency medicine, because no one is dying.
So then what attracted you? What made you go, okay, now I'm going into film?
Yeah, I've always had a foot in the arts, even like from school, I always really enjoyed the arts and actually wanted to be in the arts. But when you're black and you get good marks, you're not allowed to.
All about that.
You're not allowed. So my parents told me that I had to do science, so I became a doctor. And I became a doctor because I was like, well, I like people, I like science, so I'll marry the two. But even throughout that, I was singing, I was in a band when I was in university. Even after university, I took a gap year just to sing in that band, and actually I survived just doing that for about a year actually. And before that, I'd been with them for about 5 years when I was, about 3 years when I was a student. I think it was about 3-4 years that we were together. I also DJ'd, and I've DJ'd overseas and stuff. Yeah. So so I've dabbled as I was in medicine, and I knew. Medicine for me, it's great, it's fantastic, and it's a whole nother world and all of that. But I always knew that at some point I was going to get out. So when I came across the film industry, for me it was like, okay, no, it's here's my way out.
When you mentioned like parents, because I know for like us students, that's always the big struggle with like convincing your parents to like kind of encourage you in the arts. Yeah. What's your take on that? If Lwazi has 2 kids, Solomzi and Tole. If Solomzi one day came to you and was like, I want to pursue a career in the arts, do you think you'd like be for that?
But it's not, for me, it's not even about whether it's the arts or the engineering sector or whatever. It's about what that person is passionate about. So, for me, it's okay, you have an interest in something, but do you have also the passion and the drive and the ambition to see through? Because it doesn't matter what career you choose. Every career has got its pros and its cons, and it's all about navigating that particular space. So you have to have interest in it, you have to be passionate, and then you have to be committed. So for me, those are the things that are important. Whether what sector it is, it doesn't matter.
But artists are poor, and Lwazi.
No, well, there are some artists who are not poor, and also it is possible to. You see, that's the thing about the arts sector, is that it's actually the 3rd biggest economy in the world.
In Africa.
In
first world countries, maybe.
Well, in first world countries, but yes, no, but it's the way that the economics are managed in each country that makes the difference. You see, with us, it's all sort of microeconomics. So the bottom man doesn't actually really see the big bucks, whereas maybe in first world countries it would be macroeconomics. And so therefore, even at a stately level, they can actually feel the impact of the arts. So it's about being organized, and that's our problem, is that we're not organized. So no, I actually think that the arts carries a lot of potential. It's just that what I did realize, and that's one of the reasons why I became a producer, is that artists, they don't want to think about commercialization of art. They only want to think about arts, being
it's like this alternative.
Exactly, and some even get offended when you talk about the commercialization of art. But at the end of the day, art is consumed, and for that consumption, you can actually trade. For me, it's immaterial. It's at the end of the day, money is blood, it's survival. So it's not about making money; it's about ensuring that you can carry the work forward. If particularly in the arts, if we say that this is legacy work, then legacy work takes money to grow and to influence. So yeah.
So gun to the head, like medicine or art? Or film?
Oh gosh, I never thought I would hesitate, but no, the gun to the head definitely arts, because I like the way it can influence, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how do you feel about, because there's a comment, about like apartheid narratives and like the black story, still being told, because a lot of the time people are like, oh, it's just been done over and over again. Do you think that the apartheid narrative is like an overtold one, or do you think we maybe just need to find like new ways to tell it?
I don't think the problem is necessarily the apartheid stuff, because other countries have been able to tell their period pieces over and over and over again.
Or Holocaust.
Exactly, but we still find it entertaining and engaging. The problem is the way the stories are told. The problem is that the writing in this country is not very good, and everybody needs to just like be okay with that.
I'm even thinking like Vikings and stuff. How many times how many series
how many
about one
from Asterix, from a cartoon to now Vikings, that story has been told like to us, just even this generation, over and over again, but we still find it engaging and entertaining. No, I mean, again, just to bring it to a higher level, when it comes to filmmaking, at the end of the day, every story has been told over and over. Every love story has been told. Every war story has been told. Everything has been told over. The only thing that makes it continually engaging is the different perspective that you're getting it from, and how articulate is that perspective. The more articulate you can make that perspective, the more entertaining and engaging it will be for an audience.
So you think we need fresh perspectives?
So we just need fresh perspectives on the part of the story. But having said that, though, I don't think I think that it can still be done and all of that, but we just need fresh takes and fresh perspectives. But over and above that, yes, as an industry, we do need to steer away, but I think that everybody kind of is now going in that direction. We do need to steer away from one period and one kind of genre. So we're now in the period of the apartheid period, in the drama genre, that's what we're not even that good at, that's what we've just done. We need to explore all genres. The challenge that we have is that we don't have budgets. So, it's difficult to make a science fiction film and compete with the big studios.
Do you think there would be the market for that though?
That was the second thing I was going to say, is that we locally, you see, the thing is with the big markets, the ones that are producing those big blockbusters, their primary market is still their local market. So in China it's the Chinese, in America it's the Americans, in Europe it's every territory it's their people. Whereas South Africa, we have a very small market. I mean, of the 50 million, only about maybe 2 to 5 million probably are sort of cinema market, maybe more, I don't know, but basically a very, very small percentage. And of that percentage, then that population is also declining because people are not going to cinemas for all of that. So at the end of the day, it's all about the mathematics and how it works. So we've been stuck in that drama genre because that's the one that you can make for high production value at a low cost. But I would definitely encourage that as a nation, because now you can market, you can sell anything anyway. You're not confined to a territory. So we need everybody to invest in big blockbuster films that are South African expressed for the world market. So that's the kind of thinking that the film industry should be going in, but not abandoning local drama and this particular genre that we are used to doing. And also other periods. We must also push back the periods, not just get stuck in apartheid. There was also stuff that happened before apartheid. There was also stuff that happened in colonial history. There was stuff that happened in pre-colonial history. So there's still all of, if you're going to do period pieces, don't just choose one.
And do you think that like white people, because often that's like people have an issue with who tells like black stories, do you think that white people have a role, there is a role for them to play in like telling the black story? Or do you think that the black story is one that needs to be primary? What role do white people have in the telling of black stories?
So there's actually a book that is written by a white historian. He's a Canadian guy, It's John. His name is John Nathand. He actually wrote lots of books, lots and lots of books, right? And one book that he wrote was called The Rise and Fall of the Zulu Kingdom. In fact, the initial title was called Ropes of Sand. Nobody liked the title because it implied something disintegrating, you know. So he changed it to The Rise and Fall of the Zulu Kingdom. And, you know, when I haven't read all that book because it's thick with history. But reading that book, I remember thinking exactly that, and I was still very young, I think I was 18, you know. I remember thinking to myself, you know, the thing is that if I hadn't read this book, I actually wouldn't understand, you know, Zulu history and how far it goes back and where it comes from and all that kind of stuff. So I'm always very hesitant to be too militant and say, no, you know, black stories must be told by black people, you know, because at the end of the day, there are white people who have made records in good faith, and those records give us insight as much as anybody else's records would, you know, and as much as anybody else's spoken account would. So, no, I think that you know, story is story, you know, and again, you know, it's about perspective. As long as you understand the perspective that it comes from, and you don't get muddled about that, you know, and as long as the person who's telling the story is not assuming a perspective, because that is what a lot of white liberals are guilty of, is that they assume the perspective of the black person. It's like, no, you know, it's fine, you know, state your case, but be very clear that you are still white and you still hold a certain space of privilege and whatever that comes with being white. Don't, you know, assume the voice of, you know, the people. Then, you know, so it's all about respecting the perspective at the end of the day.
And then I wanted to also ask you about your view. Sorry guys. I also wanted to ask you, what do you think about like censorship in the arts? Because I know you were involved in a panel discussion with